Щовесни, коли тануть сніги, і наразі засяє веселка, повні сил і живої снаги, ми вшановуємо пам'ять Шевченка. 9 березня – день народження великого українського поета, людини світлого розуму, чистих помислів і трагічної долі – Тараса Шевченка. Сьогодні ми згадаємо Кобзаря знову, щоб заглибитись в палке, пристрасне слово поета. Він так любив Україну все життя, він линув до неї душею, і віддав себе, і присвячував твори, задля неї пішов у безсмертя.
In the period between 1842 and 1845, the poet wrote 24 poems which would have profound cultural and political effects. The unpublished collection was bound as a folio volume entitled 3 Years. They began with the poem The Open Grave and ended with The Testament, a poem Shevchenko wrote on December 25, 1845, when ill with typhus and fearing death was near. This collection contains some of his most openly political poems, harshly critical of the system, governance, values, and ethos of Russia as a slave-owning empire and as a system that has destroyed Ukraine and its freedoms. During his visits to Ukraine, Shevchenko became acquainted with a number of outstanding Ukrainian literary and cultural figures, among them the scholar and ethnographer Mikhailo Maximovich, Panteleimon Kulish, and Mykola Kostomarov, who, along with Shevchenko, became the triad at the core of the national revival of the 19th century. Shevchenko joined Kulish and a group of young Ukrainian intellectuals who were known as the Brotherhood of Saints Cyril and Methodius, an alleged secret society. During their meetings, they discussed various matters relating to Ukraine and its future in the context of Christian gospel morality and various Slavophile notions, among them the idea of a future Slavic union or confederation. Among the topics discussed were certainly the iniquity of serfdom and ideas of Cossack populist democracy, without slave or lord, as a possible model for a new and just order. The group was denounced to the secret police, and a number of people were arrested and sent to St. Petersburg for trial. Many of the group possessed copies of Shevchenko's 3 Years when apprehended. Shevchenko himself had a copy of the collection in his possession when he was arrested on April 5, 1847. Of all of the alleged members of the Brotherhood, Shevchenko, as author of this rebellious and criminal literature, received the harshest sentence. He was exiled to military service with the Orenburg Corps at the distant southeast border of the empire. At the insistence of Tsar Nicholas I, Shevchenko was to be kept, quote, under the strictest surveillance, prohibited from writing or painting. Although his sentence forbade him from painting and writing, Shevchenko was able to do both during his time at Orenburg from 1847 to 1850. As a recent arrival from St. Petersburg, a known poet, a political exile, and an artist, he was somewhat of a celebrity. As a result, he became friends with a number of officers and was allowed to live outside of the fortress and to have considerable free time. Shevchenko even became somewhat of an unofficial portraitist for the local military and civil service establishment in the Orenburg province. In May 1848, he was enlisted to be the artist of an 18-month expedition to chart the Aral Sea. He was supposed to record the region's flora, fauna, and geology. His exile landscape drawings and watercolors surpassed the level of mere technical and scientific reportage, providing very subtle and often lyrical accounts of the Kazakh land within the framework of the romantic concept of the sublime. The early years of Shevchenko's imprisonment following his arrest in Kyiv and exile to Orenburg were also among his most productive in terms of writing poetry. In Orenburg, he completed the final of 13 poems he titled In Prison. Over his first 3 years of exile, he produced some of his best poetry and nearly half of his entire lifelong poetic output. The poetry became more personal and confessional and focused on his role as a poet and the meaning of that calling.
You did not play me false, O fate. You were a brother, closest friend to this poor wretch. You took my hand when I was still a little tot, and walked me to the deacon's school to learn from him, the drunken sot. My boy, just study hard, you said, and you'll be somebody in time. I listened, studied, forged ahead, got educated, but you lied. What am I now? But never mind. We've walked the straight path, you and I. We have not cheated, compromised, or lived the very slightest lie. So let's march on, dear fate of mine, my humble, truthful, faithful friend. Keep marching on. There glory lies. March forward. That's my testament.
When I die, let me be buried in my beloved Ukraine, my tomb upon a grave mound high, amid the widespread plain, that the fields, the steppe unbounded, the Dnieper's plunging shore, my eye could see, my ear could hear, the mighty river roar. When from Ukraine the Dnieper bears into the deep blue sea the blood of foes, then will I leave these hills and fertile fields. I'll leave them all behind and fly to the abode of God, to sing His praise, but till that day I nothing know of God. Unbury me, then rise ye up, and break your heavy chains, and water with the tyrant's blood the freedom you have gained. And in the great new family, the family of the free, with softly spoken kindly word, remember also me.